Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be digging into a classic when it comes to personal finance and wealth building.
Yeah.
We are talking about The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. Now, I think, we always try to go for stuff that's really actionable. So
Absolutely.
you can kind of take those key ideas and implement those into your own life.
Yeah,
And I think that's something this book does really well.
it does. And it does it in such a fun, engaging way because it's a very easy read.
Yeah.
And Klassen frames it in a way that really gets to the fundamentals and the principles of personal finance. And I think that's why it stood the test of time, because these ideas are just as applicable today as they were, back in the 1920s when the book was written.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's almost been 100 years, and it's still one of the top books recommended
Yeah.
when it comes to personal finance. And I think the way it's written, in these parables set in ancient Babylon,
Yes.
it kind of makes it a little bit more approachable, I think, too. All right, so let's dive right into the book. Now, the heart of this book is the 7 cures for a lean purse.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through each of these cures and kind of talk about, how we can apply those to today's world, even though they were written almost 100 years ago.
Right.
So cure number 1, start thy purse to fattening.
Now, this is one of my favorites, and I really think this is the foundational
Yeah.
cure for a lean purse, and that is the concept of paying yourself first.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people hear this and think, well, yeah, of course I pay myself first. When I get my paycheck, I go out and buy myself something.
Right.
It's like, no, no, no. This is the concept of really setting aside for future you
Yeah.
at least 10% of all your earnings before you pay anything else.
Right.
And I know that can sound daunting,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things that once you start doing it,
Hmm.
it makes a huge difference.
It's about creating that habit.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Klassen in the book recommends doing this before you even pay your bills.
Yeah.
Now, I know some people would probably disagree with that, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a mindset shift
yes, it is.
of making yourself and your financial future a priority.
Exactly.
All right, so cure number 2. This one is control thy expenditures.
And this sounds so basic,
Oh yeah.
but again, it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And one of the things that the richest man in Babylon really highlights is the difference between needs
Yeah.
and wants,
Oh, I love this.
right? Because we live in a society where we're constantly bombarded with advertising and marketing, and we're conditioned to think we need all these things that we really don't need.
It really is about conscious spending,
It is.
and asking yourself, do I really need this,
Yeah.
or do we just want it?
Right. And it's interesting because when I first read this book years ago, that was one of the things that really resonated with me, was that concept of really examining
Yeah.
your spending habits.
Yeah, and I think so many people kind of just live on autopilot.
They do.
They get their paycheck, they pay their bills, and whatever's left over, they just spend
Right.
without really thinking about it.
Without any thought to the future. And that's where I think this particular cure is so important,
Yeah.
because it forces you to become more aware
Yeah.
of where your money's going,
Yeah.
and to start making more intentional choices.
Yeah. And I think it's not about, depriving yourself.
Right.
It's about making sure that your spending is aligned with your values
Exactly.
and your goals.
Right.
All right. So cure number 3, make thy gold multiply.
All right, so now we're getting into the exciting stuff.
Yeah, right.
So you've started paying yourself first, you're controlling your expenditures. Now it's time to put that money to work.
Yes.
And this is where investing comes in.
Okay. Now, full disclaimer, we're not financial advisors.
Of course.
This isn't financial advice, but I think what this book does really well is kind of highlight the importance of it does.
Not just saving money, but making your money work for you.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and back in ancient Babylon, they didn't have 401ks or index funds or anything like that.
Right.
But they did have the concept of investing.
Yeah.
And it might have been, lending money at interest or investing in a business venture or, something like that.
Yeah.
But the fundamental principle
Yeah.
is the same. Your money should be working for you.
It's like that snowball effect,
Yeah.
You start with saving, but then the investing is what really allows it to start to compound and grow.
Yeah. It's like planting a seed and watching it grow into a tree.
I love that analogy.
And then that tree bears fruit, and then you can plant more seeds from that fruit and so on, right? So it's this ongoing cycle.
Yeah, and it's, even though it doesn't specifically mention compound interest,
Right.
it's kind of that concept,
Yeah, it is.
of letting your money grow and work for you.
Yeah.
All right, so cure number 4, guard thy treasures from loss. All right, so this is a really important one, especially in today's world where there's so many get-rich-quick schemes out there,
Oh, yeah.
right? And the book warns against, being lured in by these promises of unrealistic return.
Yes.
And it emphasizes the importance of seeking wise counsel
Yeah.
from people who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to investing.
Well, and I think it's so hard, too, because everyone's trying to sell you something,
Oh, I know, right?
So I think the point that they make about really seeking wise counsel,
Yeah.
and really being discerning about
That's so.
who you're taking advice from
Yeah.
is so important.
And it's also important to remember that there's no such thing as a risk-free investment.
Right.
Every investment carries some level of risk. And so it's important to understand
Yeah.
what those risks are before you invest.
It all comes back to that due diligence, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that we see a lot today that I think kind of ties into this cure is this idea of FOMO,
Oh, the fear of missing out.
the fear of missing out,
Yeah.
right? And you see something on social media or you hear about it from a friend and everybody's getting rich and you think, oh, I got to get in on this.
I got to get in on that, too.
Right. And that's where this cure is so important to really step back.
Yeah.
Take a breath,
Do your research.
do your research. Don't let your emotions make
Yeah.
those investment decisions for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. All right. So cure number 5, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment.
All right. So this one can be a little bit tricky to apply to today's world.
Yeah. It's a little more nuanced, I think, than some of the other ones.
It is, yeah, because, back in ancient Babylon, owning your own home was seen as like a symbol of success. And it was a way to build wealth because you were putting your money into something that you owned
Right.
as opposed to renting
Yeah.
and paying somebody else.
And today, I mean, homeownership can still be a great investment
Oh, absolutely.
for a lot of people, but it's not always the right choice.
It's not for everyone, right?
But I think the underlying principle here is the idea of owning assets,
Yes.
right? So it's not just about home ownership. It's about,
Right.
owning things that can potentially appreciate in value
Yeah,
or generate income.
absolutely.
So this could be, real estate. It could be a business. It could be stocks.
Right.
It could be a number of different things.
Yeah, and it could be something as simple as, investing in a rental property
Yeah.
or doing a side hustle
Yeah.
that generates some extra income.
Yeah, and I think, one of the key things to remember here is that it's not just about buying things.
Right.
It's about buying things that are going to work for you.
Yeah, things that are going to help you build wealth over time,
Exactly.
not just things that are going to depreciate in value as soon as you buy them.
All right, cure number 6, ensure a future income.
So this one's all about planning for the long term.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is huge.
It is. And a lot of people, they focus on their immediate needs,
Right.
but they don't really think about what's going to happen down the road.
Yeah.
And this cure emphasizes the importance of having a plan
Yeah.
for your future income.
And that can look so many different ways, right?
It can.
It could be retirement savings.
Yeah.
It could be investing in a business that's
Right.
going to generate passive income.
Yeah.
It could be really anything that's going to provide you with that financial security.
It's about having multiple streams of income
Yes.
so that you're not relying on just one source.
Yeah, and I think, one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that retirement is something that they can worry about later.
Right.
But the sooner you start planning for it,
The better off you'll be.
the more time you have for that compound growth to work its magic.
Yeah.
All right, and the final cure number 7, increase thy ability to earn.
So this one's all about investing in yourself.
This is my favorite.
Yeah.
This is my favorite one.
It's a good guy.
Because, it's not just about managing your money.
Right.
It's about increasing your earning potential.
Yeah.
And that can be through education.
Yeah.
It can be through learning new skills.
Absolutely.
It can be through, developing your talents.
Right.
And I think that's something that a lot of people overlook.
They do.
They focus so much on, cutting expenses and saving money.
Yeah.
But they don't really think about how they can earn more money.
And that's really the key.
Yeah.
Because the more money you earn,
Yeah.
the more money you have to save and invest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, one of the things that the book highlights is that, the more valuable you are,
Right.
the more you can earn. So it's about, constantly improving yourself.
Yeah.
and becoming more knowledgeable and more skilled.
And more marketable.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So those are the 7 cures. And as we mentioned before, even though they were written almost 100 years ago, they're still so relevant today.
They are.
So for those of you listening, what are some things that you can do to start implementing these cures into your own life?
Well, I think one of the easiest things to do is to start tracking your expenses.
Oh, yeah.
Really get a handle on where your money's going.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many apps out there
There are so many apps
that make it so easy
Yeah.
to just, track every dollar that you spend.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
Track everything.
Yeah.
Because once you see where your money's going, then you can start to make more informed decisions about
Yeah.
how to allocate your resources.
And I think, once you've done that,
Right.
then you can start to look at, okay, how can I start to pay myself first?
Yeah.
How can I start to set aside 10% of my income? And it might mean making some adjustments to your budget,
It might.
but it's so worth it.
It is.
And then, once you've got that 10% set aside,
Yeah.
then you can start to look at, okay, how can I make this money multiply?
Right.
How can I start investing it?
And remember,
Yeah.
investing doesn't have to be complicated.
No, it doesn't.
There's lots of simple ways to get started,
Yeah.
like index funds.
Yeah.
Or even just a simple savings account.
Yeah.
That pays a little bit of interest.
And I think, when it comes to investing, it's so important to educate yourself.
It is.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Don't just blindly follow what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to seek out professional advice
Yeah,
if you need it.
absolutely. All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to leave you with one final thought. The Richest Man in Babylon is not just a book about getting rich.
It's not.
It's a book about developing good financial habits.
It is.
And really, it's a book about taking control of your financial future. So no matter where you are in your financial journey, know that you can start implementing these principles today and start building a brighter financial future for yourself.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive
Sounds good.
into a new topic,
Yeah.
and hopefully one that can help you on your journey as well.
All right.
All right, take care.
Bye.